Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Alex Borek, Director of Data Analytics at Zalando and founder of Data Masterclass. Alex, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Matt. Very good. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you. You're running a lot of episodes. Which kind of episode is that already?
This would probably be 85 or thereabouts. So yeah, it's been a huge success, very well received. And yeah, honored to have someone as yourself join us.
Well, it's an honor to be, part of that beautiful series.
Fantastic. And I'd be surprised if anyone doesn't know who you are, but in case, give us a quick introduction to Alex.
Well, I'm sure plenty of you don't know me yet, and it's a pleasure to meet everyone. And thank you for listening. I've been working as a data leader over the past. Well, it depends on what you count, but at least over the past 8 years. And beforehand, I was working in consulting, but basically in very strategic projects to set up data organizations, data strategies for large corporates. So if you count that in, it's over a decade now that I'm working in data leadership. And I had really a lot of fun really exploring also the different sides of data leadership. So when I was working at IBM, I was working for the corporate headquarters as a senior data scientist, working out of London for New York, doing data crunching and then putting it into McKinsey-style PowerPoint slides for the board to make global decisions, which was quite fun. So I had that sort of explored the data science part. My PhD was actually on data management, and now I'm working in analytics. So which means I'm taking care. I mean, I sort of do end-to-end stuff, but right now my main, you could say, user persona are a few thousands analytics users in particular. So it's really nice to have that range. And before I joined Zalando, and for those who don't know Zalando, it's like a large online fashion retailer, the largest one in Europe. Serving over 50 million customers with not only fashion, now it's also beauty and a bunch of other categories that we serve. And it's a very data-driven and tech-driven business. So very fascinating to work with. But before I joined Zalando, I was actually doing something very different. I was helping actually a large automotive for the Volkswagen Group to set up the group digitization and the digitization overall. Like when I joined 2015, it was just the early days. I was like one of the first leadership hires that came in when the chief digital officer came from Apple to Volkswagen to actually set up all the software functions and so on. And I had the pleasure to actually work across the group and set up data and AI strategies with the different brands like Audi, Porsche, Skoda, Scania. Together, of course, in a partnership. I was working at the holding level, working with all these amazing historic brands and really bring them into the future and setting up all these, now it's like thousands of engineers, software engineers working to make the car and also, car retail, which used to be a very physical business, very digital. And, when I joined Zalando, I mean, all these people were already there. Like, it's funny because we hired all these 1,000 people while at Zalando, that was part of the history. Like, that for the past, I mean, we've been growing quite a bit, but it's been always a very tech-driven, software-driven company, combining sort of the science part with the art part of fashion, which is very interesting. So that's sort of my journey, like traditional automotive transformation from a hardware manufacturer to a software manufacturer. And now, with Zalando for the past years, a very, very fast growing, already large, but still growing company that serves now, many markets across Europe, I think, and And with the challenge that when you grow so fast and when you really invest in innovation everywhere, you need to make data speak to each other better. And that was sort of part of my task, and and the great team we're working, and some of the peers that are also in data leadership positions. We really had the task to bring a little bit more structure and an operating model on how we collaborate on data to Zalando. And that's been a very fascinating journey the last 3 years. And for the first time in history, Zalando has a data strategy, since last year. All the time we've been doing amazing data things, but all over the place. But now we have really something agreed on how we want to work across all these amazing business units. And that's another basically transformation. So you can see a pattern there. I'm usually there where you need to do a large transformation that goes around data, AI, and tech.
I mean, what a career you've had so far, and hopefully we'll tap into some of that wisdom, and we can hear your passion for data leadership, which I'm sure was how the Data Masterclass started. What a success that was. I've heard nothing but great reviews. How was it for you?
It's a very different hat I wear when I organize the Data Masterclass activities. It's something that I've been thinking of actually over the last few years, because I was always thinking, how can we bring faster transformation of our industries, in Europe? When you look at China and Asia, when you look at the US, we are a bit behind in Europe. Not everywhere, Berlin is a good place. I think Paris and London are also good places. But in general, we have large, great industrial players across Europe that seemed to struggle a little bit. And I saw how much effort it took at Volkswagen to get some needles moving. I mean, and everyone is moving, and that's good. I think we're all moving in the right direction. But I thought maybe there are ways of sharing best practices and practical knowledge better, in particular also for how to run a transformation. There's a lot of sharing of how do I implement the technology. There's lots of great courses on how to program in Python, how to use generative AI and connect to an API to use something. But what's a bit missing is, what can I do as a leader to advance better or faster, or also, a bit more inclusive on a transformation journey, because inclusion is very important, because it's not about the few thousand people that are running a transformation. It's about the few 100,000 people that needs to be with you on that journey. And that's what the mission of the Data Masterclass was, bringing the different leaders together, data and AI leaders together, across the board, and from both tech companies, and we had many people from companies like Delivery Hero, like HelloFresh. But then also the but large, massive traditional companies with great data leaders, of course. I mean, those are some of the most experienced data leaders, like Micheline Casey from Siemens Energy, the chief data and analytics officer there. She's been CDO for the last 18 years of Federal Reserve, I think, of Ford Motors. I mean, those are the people that we can really learn from. And at Data Masterclass, we really want to tap into all those brains and share that knowledge in a more structured way. Conferences are great, but what we wanted to create is an event, but also a community that shares that know-how, that knowledge, that practical transformation knowledge with each other. And I think it really, I'm really glad to say that experiment, because it was a big experiment. I'm not an events guy. I'm not a community person. I'm a data leader, but so the good thing is I knew the persona. I knew my customer, because I'm one of them. But I had really to learn, how do you bring people together and in a purposeful way, so they can really exchange a bit deeper. And at the end, I think everyone was very, very excited, because those 3 days were so intense, but people took everyone, like even the most seasoned CDOs took something with them where they say, hey, I do it this way. I learned that from that person, and it will really speed things up or makes things easy for me. And that's and I'm really, really glad that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often that industry and tech are both in the same room discussing
Right.
and sharing knowledge. And of the guest list that you had and the platform you gave people, I think if someone didn't take a learning away, then I don't know how they could have. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about leadership, data leadership, maybe an intro into data leadership and how it may evolve. But to go backwards first, data leadership, where did it start? Why was it set up? What's the kind of beginnings of data leadership?
Well, I think it goes sort of to the beginning of 2000s. I think when the first CDOs came up in the US, and as you know, and it was in particular in industries that were very heavily regulated, and they needed people that or leaders, executives that take ownership, take accountability of data across the company, and making sure that data is basically managed and used in a way that is according to the regulations. So we saw that, I think, quite really popping up more in the banking area. I think
Right.
in Yahoo had very early on a CDO as well, and a bunch of other companies, mostly coming from the US. And we saw then, over time, more and more data leaders, in particular in the US, being appointed, some even as board members, which was, I think, quite a big thing. And until today, you do have still a number of CDOs. It's not the norm, but it's still the exception. But it does happen regularly that you have a CDO as a board member. And what we saw is that over time, that very defensive role that was focused on data governance started to struggle a bit, because the question was on the impact. Yeah, you do fulfill regulations, but we want to also use that data. And the CDO was very fast perceived as someone who actually prevents innovation rather than enabling innovation.
Yeah.
So we saw then an extension to the CDAO role, which was then data and analytics officer, where it was also about enabling insights across the company, and then expanding to ML and AI cases. When big data came up, then that was expanding also to data science, as it was called back then. Still used today as a word, but now a lot of people talk more about AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
But back then, data scientist was the unicorn. Data engineering was not really well known. And so we really saw how, you had these data governance folks, you had the analytics folks that do, coming really from business intelligence, which is an old profession by now. Data quality, data governance is also now, goes back until 30 years. And then, like 2008, 2009, we saw more and more data scientists coming up. 2010 to 2016, 17 period was when data science and big data was really growing a lot. And then moving towards more ML engineering. Since 2018, we saw really the shift. Now we have ML engineering. We have maybe really the mathematicians that do the models. We do have now the data engineers, and we have the product managers. So the times are long gone that we have the data scientists as unicorn. And a similar journey we saw with data leaders. Now I see much more like at Zalando, we have a director of data platform, and I'm the director of data analytics, and we have somebody who's taking care of the ML teams, and that's much more specialized, and you still see cross dependencies. Not like I have a machine learning team in my area, for example. You do have still a bit of that multifunctionality or multidisciplinarity in these teams. But you do see a specialization not only in the data roles of the individual contributors, but also in the leadership. So we have roles like director of applied science for ML, director of data platform or director of data engineering, director of analytics, and then of course head roles and team leader roles or engineering manager roles. And in particular, what I see is that in particular in the tech companies, you now have a normal data unit consists of product managers and then engineering teams. And that's also I think it's a good setup that right now has started to become, I would say, a common practice that works quite well. Now, one thing that happened also over the past years is as companies have grown their data teams, I mean, all these teams have grown. I think this is a big difference. 10 years ago, I don't know the statistics. It's actually good it might be a good topic actually to investigate. But at least what I can observe as a practitioner in the field was that you see many more people in numbers that have data or analytics or AI or ML in the roles. I don't know how you see that. I think that's really a big difference. Can you observe that as well as a recruiter?
I think the teams are growing. The roles are evolving. It is no longer a team of data scientists. It's a end-to-end. You've got a software engineer who specializes in data all the way through to ML engineers. So the numbers are changing, but I think because the job titles are changing, it is also probably hard to do a direct analysis. But certainly it's A, I think the numbers are increasing, and B, the specialization is also increasing across the board, and different roles popping up as well. So data product manager. So whereas generalization of roles across the data lifecycle, there's this generalization roles such as product manager is now becoming super specialized. So evolution is definitely occurring. Do you think that makes it more difficult for data leaders to keep up with this?
I think it's changing the game quite substantially. Like what I could observe over the last years was you usually had a central team. In the beginning, it was a lot of labs, in particular when you look at big data and data science, operating as labs across a group, and you saw that both in the tech world, by the way, and in the corporate world. And then what you saw is that each business unit or business division or or profit line or subsidiary started to have their own data teams. Now, the last years, what I saw is that even even each department started to have data scientists, BI teams or analyst teams and data engineering teams. And maybe you have more platform people when it comes to like the more you go further away from the business departments, the more you see like more engineering and in particular data platform and data infrastructure. While when you're closer to the business, you see more analysts and ML. I mean, that's maybe what you see, but you do see that the data is now getting more ubiquitous across the company, and that changes the game. So what you see is, first of all, a lot of companies don't have chief data officers anymore, or don't have that anymore, and VP data and so on. Maybe they have still VP data, but often VP data or VP analytics or VP AI means for one business function, maybe they are business line, they are the one driving the use cases for that function. That's very different to that kind of, I'm somebody who drives the group data strategy, which the CDO role was all about. And that is changing quite a lot. So you see more and more data leadership distributed as the teams get distributed. Which means that the requirement for the role changed, because now you're not the one doing the group data strategy, but you're doing a very close to the business, data strategy that is very close to the business, that directly supports the business. It's not about, it's not so much about, I don't know, implementing the Dharma book, but it's more about how can you help me drive 10% more profit next year with data. And that really changes the game, the kind of profiles and what is demanded of people. And And it also, and for those that are still in these central roles, and I'm one of them, I'm in a central role at Zalando. So I have peers in the business units, and we are like an ecosystem, like a community, and I'm co-leading like the data strategy, the Zalando data strategy. And so I'm in that kind of role there, but I'm not that, like, I'm not in with the same manner like a CDO in some organizations where they can basically determine top down everything. So we have more the setup that I'm sort of facilitating a discussion between the leaders, and we then agree on goals, and we have a data strategy that we together came up, that I was together with a colleague facilitating. But it's a very different environment than you're a CDO, you're a board member, you say tell top down what to do. So you really have these flavors, and that really changes things, because that means that you have to manage an ecosystem, that you have to start being like a bridge building bridges between the different environments and the different leaders, the different teams, so they can start sharing data in a more meaningful way, in a better way with each other. And I think that is really different than okay, now I have to implement strict data governance. It's also different to now I have to deliver like a portfolio of 50 use cases. No, I think that the central data leader role is changing into now I'm facilitating how people share data across the company and how they can leverage that data to make it as easy as possible. So you see a centralization of the how and the decentralization of the what. And beforehand, it was almost like the opposite. Like you determined the what and the strategy, and then the how was executed. And that is an interesting trend to observe.
So it sounds like centralized foundations and best practices, but the specialisms, they can't be centralized. Do you think how quickly landscapes changing with different tools, different methods within each discipline is causing the need for specialism instead of once was centralized data setups?
I think the need was that you need to be close to the business to really drive fast and great value with data and analytics and AI. I think that's the driver. It's not the rate of change which is there, which makes this model being close to the business actually rather more complicated. When technologies are changing, you need a lot of experts. And that makes it a little bit more difficult. So the friend of that decentralization is the simplification in technologies. So what you see is a simplification of the technologies by the vendors, but what you also see is the role of the central teams is to provide a data platform that makes it as easy as possible for these central teams to participate and to create value. So the complexity is hidden a bit, by, I would say, data engineers, like I would call maybe power data engineers. You see that the most technical data engineers are more central, while you have more business focused data engineers decentral. And those very, I would say, technically powerful people can then build things that make it easier to really focus on the business value in the decentral organization. And that's definitely something I see. And the data mesh paradigm actually is going directly in that direction. Like you decentralize, but at the same time you have a way of how you work together, and it's the idea of having a strong data platform in the middle that is much more than just infrastructure. It is more like a platform, like a marketplace, which defines the rules how we work with each other.
Absolutely. And the data ops is ever growing, and business focused engineering, analytics engineering, all align with that. So that's where we are now, and that's the considerations that data leadership has now, or what we're working towards in the near future. What's the mid to longer term future look like for data leadership?
I think strategically, we are currently in a position of actually playing a bit of catch up with the software engineering world. And that catch up is going well. I think we're advancing. But what it means is there's a lot of engineering excellence that came only very late to data engineering that now is picked up. And that's I would say that's something that keeps data leaders busy to bring all that engineering excellence to data. But that's not enough, because what we also discovered is, and a lot of CTOs here maybe misjudged a little bit or underestimated that actually data needs to be treated in a certain way also different than to normal software. Data needs all that engineering excellence, but that requires also data excellence, which means that you need to know what's inside the data. You need to make sure that it's more compatible. You can change software features faster than data models. I mean, you can change data models, but it can break a lot of things down the line. It can break your ESG reporting. It can break your AI algorithms that run in your core product that you sell to your customers. It can break a lot of things. And that's something that, in a microservice world, we could decouple to a certain degree. Also, that was more, to a certain degree overestimated. But with data, we need strong decentralized data management that is almost like a layer on top of the engineering excellence. And I call that data excellence. You need engineering excellence and data excellence. And I think those are the tough tasks, first of all, bringing everyone along that journey. A lot of data engineers are still very not everyone, but a lot of the data engineers are still very SQL focused. They need to learn all that kind of, how do I navigate in an engineering driven world? And then we need to discover as a community, how do we manage data, in a tech environment, but how do we integrate in that tech environment? What is really different? What does not work? Where do we have to say, hang on a minute, we can build applications this way, but we need to do certain things to treat data properly, to take care of data quality, to take care of how data models interoperate, when you have different entities, when you have logistics with your working together with your customer experience team, that data needs to be interconnected. And if one party changes data, it has an impact on the other party. We cannot show customers how fast things are delivered or where there are problems. They need to speak to each other. And they need to, and there need to be data contracts in place. I think that's all these things, we need to figure out as a community. And I see strong movements right now, also coming from the US, but also around the world. Data contracts is one of these big things. Data mesh is another strong movement, and that will help us with that. And I think that's the task really of data leaders to come. And maybe one more thing, when you look at the next years, it's very interesting to see how all the generative AI stuff will play out for data and AI leadership. Now, everyone is on the generative AI hype, and I saw that study from McKinsey that said there's a potential of up to several trillion US dollars I think in the US alone of generative AI, and of course that's a potential, but what it means, if you want to put generative AI or any kind of AI into place, that usually means that humans and machines need to work together. And I remember from the AI transformation that I was doing at Volkswagen Financial Services, that was the tough part. And that's the part that you need longest. And you need the business experts to tell the AI what to do. And there needs to be incentives for that in play. And that will be quite an interesting challenge for data leaders that are driving also the AI transformation. And while also how we do AI and ML changes with generative AI, we see more and more AI coming out of the box as software as a service. That's very different to these times where you build up the ML and data science teams to build stuff in-house, and when I recently talked to, I'm running also podcast, Data Masterclass podcast, and I recently talked to the head of AI language models, models at Bayer, the large pharmaceutical company, and he told me, of course we use GPT. I mean, that's like you don't do your own language models unless you have a very good reason to do so. So the role of these language engineers is rather to tweak these models, and sometimes it's even less than that. Like you see more and more AI. Like there's right now, I think billions of US dollars flowing into this. Like a lot of startup investment is going right now into this whole ecosystem of generative AI apps. That build on top. So which means that others build already an app for you, and you just need to interconnect your data. And that means that your data becomes very valuable, and you need to be very cautious who you share it with and how. At the same time, you need to manage it better, because that's the advantage you have. When AI comes out of the box, data management part will be very important. And I think that's something that is hidden under the iceberg right now, that data management becomes so more important, because data is the only thing that is really different, that like your data, your customer data, your product data, nobody else has.
No, I think the bar's raised. Everyone, you might as well join and ride the wave, but you need to look after your proprietary data, and that's where the value comes. But there's no point. You might as well start from the same point as everyone else is, and then add the value. Absolutely. I'm conscious of time, so I want to kind of finish with a final question. You're very well connected. If I'm a data leader and I want to keep my finger on the pulse with hot topics, trends, keep relevant, how would you advise to do so?
Well, I think there are plenty of of ways of doing it. I think we are almost suffering under that there's too much outside, actually. There's so much. I wouldn't necessarily call it noise. There's a lot of valuable things, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I mean,
where do you get yours from?
Yeah, I think, I tend to, I think there are fabulous blogs, of course, that you can look at. I like actually the one of Chad Sanderson on data products. I don't know if you've seen it on Substack. It's a very good one. Nayo Khan has a LinkedIn newsletter, which I love, on generative AI. I think he does it every few weeks. He's working as a partner at McKinsey, Quantum Black, and has a fabulous newsletter on that. When you want to have ML Ops, Alejandro Saucedo has the ML Ops newsletter, with I think, I don't know how many, like almost 100,000 followers. I think all of these really help. I actually also like HBR, Harvard Business Review, and also McKinsey Quarterly to look at for these more strategic topics. And then, last but not least, we are right now investing heavily in making Data Masterclass a place where we take out some of the noise and complexity. And also because it's so many things, like you need to go to Chad Sanderson for data products, to Nayo Khan for generative AI, to Alexander Saucedo for the ML Ops thing. Like you want to have an overview. That's what we're trying to do, is to provide that overview. We're launching a newsletter soon, and also a bunch of things that will help in terms of content to crystallize out some things. And then, of course, podcasts like yours help a lot. I think just listening to people, I think that's a great place to keep yourself informed. So,
absolutely.
But I think it's tough. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, a lot of info. I think that's what a lot of people are kind of craving at the moment. Is I want to learn, but am I learning the right thing? Am I listening to the right people? So. We will tag the Data Masterclass, and hopefully we'll see that newsletter soon.
Perfect.
And
I mean, we have now launched datamasterclass.com as domain, and that's sort of our home. And we will have actually all recordings of the Data Masterclass Europe soon going live there. So if you want to have a look there, that's part of the, we have a membership model, like where you get some stuff for free and some stuff that is premium.
Nice. We'll share that.
Everyone to check out.
Yeah, definitely. We'll tag that in and make sure. I think it'd be a criminal for anyone not to check that out. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for your time and your rich insights, Alex.
Thank you very much, Matt. It was a pleasure discussing this with you.
Yeah, it's been great having you on. And to listeners, obviously drop your questions, feedback, and don't forget to like and share so we can reach as many people as possible. but it is. Bye from us. Thanks once again, Alex. And ciao for now.
Thank you.